Why we can't have a good science fiction movie or TV series. Part 1. What is science fiction? This is going to be a multi-part series to answer the main question in the title. There really is no other way. So we're going to start with what science fiction is. I'm going to start by quoting what Wikipedia has, as it's pretty close to what everyone thinks. Science fiction is a genre of speculative fiction typically dealing with imaginative concepts such as futuristic science and technology, space travel, time travel, faster than light travel, parallel universes, and extraterrestrial life. Science fiction often explores the potential consequences of scientific and other innovations, and it's been called a literature of ideas. It usually eschews the supernatural, and unlike related genre of fantasy, historical science fiction stories were intended to have at least a faint grounding in science-based fact or theory at the time the story was created, but this connection has become tenuous or non-existent in much of science fiction. Sounds about right, doesn't it? You look at all the recent movies, like Transformers and Jupiter Ascending, all sorts of sci-fi stuff in there. Not much of a story, but lots of explosions. So those, and all the rest that have come out recently, are sci-fi by the definition given. Quick side note, I'm not including Guardians of the Galaxy here because that was definitely in the superhero genre. So while it was a great movie, it wasn't technically sci-fi. Yes, all these movies in the past decade or so check the boxes on what they should have and should be, according to the definition anyway. However, I would argue that they don't even come close to filling what science fiction was supposed to be, according to the authors who pretty much invented it. I'm suddenly reminded of an author who went on Wiki and found someone had made an entry for the book he'd written, only they had gotten a number of things wrong, including the reason why he wrote certain things. So he went in and made corrections, and they were taken down. He tried several times and finally got hold of Wiki. They told him there was no way he could know what was right and wrong. Now, Wiki knew he was the author, but since he hadn't published anywhere else, he wasn't allowed to make corrections on the entry to his own book. I often get the feeling that Hollywood is trying to do something similar to those who created science fiction, all in order to be able to press their own agenda. Now think about that author for a minute. Someone who invented something was told he wasn't allowed to know anything about what he invented until he had proved he knew nothing about something else. For those of you who are well read, that should remind you of something. For the rest, go read 1984. And I specifically chose the wiki definition to point out the fallacy that can creep into understandings. So what is science fiction? It was always supposed to be a way to look at things and issues that are prevalent in the time of the writing, but using a future context so those reading or watching would not see their own strongly held beliefs as being attacked. Pretty much all the great sci-fi authors in the past used this trick. Look, for example, at how the original Star Trek tackled things like race. A black woman standing side by side with white males as an equal? Unheard of at the time. But since it was portrayed as happening in the future, it was generally accepted as possible. And by that small admission, it allowed people to think it would be okay to happen sooner rather than later. And there were many more examples throughout the original series. Now I'm sure a number of you are pointing at Avatar. It had a futuristic setting, and it had a message, but it had the wrong message, or rather wrong type. It was trying to browbeat moviegoers into feeling bad about what happened to American Indians. This wasn't about a current social issue, and it wasn't trying to convince people to change their view on things. Most already had a bad view of how things were handled with American Indians in the past. It was just trying to make everyone feel bad about something that happened a long time ago. Worse, it was an attack on all humans, trying to make people feel bad about being human. Not only that, it stole its plot and storyline from others that came before. Nothing original. So yes, when putting the movie into brackets, he would tend to put it into the sci-fi binder. But it and all of this that have an agenda versus bring up aspects of society review are not true science fiction, and definitely not good in any other sense than they give you an hour of visual enjoyment. They have the goal of dumbing you down, because that's the other aspect of science fiction that should be there but isn't in today's offerings. You should come away not only with a focus on becoming a better person, but you should also feel you have learned something science-wise, or at the very least start to question your current understanding of what is scientifically accepted, with a drive to explore things more. Pretty much all the recent movies/TV shows fail in that regard these days. That said, let's try a different definition of science fiction, one that was envisioned by the people, like Edgar Rice Burroughs, who invented the genre. Science fiction is a genre that uses a future setting to look at current society through a lens that removes the writer-watcher from direct connection to the concepts being examined. It is not done as propaganda, trying to force someone's opinion one way or another. It instead invites them to question their views as they look at them from a slightly different point of view. Additionally, the story should introduce science aspects of the future setting in order to draw minds into the pursuit of advancing science in those areas. That covers it fairly well, I think. Let me know below what you think about that definition. In future editions to this series, I'll be going over specific movies and shows like Star Trek, Star Wars, as well as others. I want to dig into why some are good and how they turn bad, and some failed the real definition of science fiction. By examining these, I think the answer to the first question in my title will become obvious. That's it for part 1. If you enjoyed, please like and subscribe, and part 2 will be coming out shortly. Thank you.